If you've ever wanted to be a better communicator, I know exactly how you feel. Public speaking and learning to be better at public speaking isn't just about standing on stages or leading team meetings. There's so much more to it than that. It can give you so much more than just these practical workplace benefits or benefits for communicating clearly on stages. And that's kind of what I wanted to dive into in this very first episode. And that's because I'm celebrating with my wife our 10-year anniversary of our first date this weekend. Now, you might think that's a weird thing to bring up at the beginning of a public speaking podcast, but really it was the things that I had learned, the communication tips that I had learned through public speaking that helped me to land that date. It wasn't about looks, I can guarantee you that one. She wasn't attracted to me in that way. It was more about our communication. She loved the way we spoke. She loved the way that we could talk to each other. So much of our first date revolved around communication. And if I hadn't learned how to communicate effectively, then I wouldn't have been able to nail that first date. The stakes were high. For me personally, there were personal stakes, but I really liked this girl. I wanted to date her. And so I needed to be effective in my communication. So I had to be able to listen. I had to be able to structure my sentences and ask thought-provoking questions. I had to be engaging. I had to be dynamic. If I was boring, then she wouldn't be interested in continuing the date. So public speaking and learning public speaking skills benefited me in my personal life. They help me all the time when it comes to getting on stages. They help me when it comes to being able to lead workshops and meetings. But they also help me every day. I feel more confident as a communicator. And when you think about it, we're all communicating. Do you know how many words you say in any given day? Well, the average is 7,000. So you say 7,000 words on average every day. You know, some of these words are completely inconsequential, maybe speaking to someone at a coffee shop or sort of just passing along information very briefly, which has no tangible result on your day. But some of the words you say are high stakes. They're important. We really need to be able to communicate them clearly. So public speaking as a concept is really just clear communication. We frame it as public speaking because you're speaking to normally a group of people, either a small group or large group. But public speaking is about communication. One-way communication, but really all types of communication are two-way because people will give you non-verbal cues. So learning how to communicate better, learning how to structure your sentences, structure your thoughts in a way that engages people from the stage can benefit you in your day-to-day life. So I have a question for you. Have you worked on public speaking? Have you worked on your communication? A lot of people put to one side these soft skills. They go, they're not really relevant for me today in the world that we live in. I need to improve in, maybe taking courses to add to my hard skills so that I can apply that to my job. But a lot of the time you're doing that because you want a promotion. You want to go up the ladder at work, and that's great. And obviously we all want to improve and we want to make progress in our careers. But normally when you do make that promotion and you get into that higher position at work, it involves a leadership component. Maybe you now have to lead a team. Okay, great. We're leading a team, but leading a team means communicating effectively with a team. So have you worked on your communication skills? If you are a speaker, if you are a keynote speaker or you lead large presentations, have you worked recently on your communication skills? I was on a podcast recently and the host said that most people stop working on public speaking skills. And that means that they get to a point maybe where they're good enough, but they don't continue to work on it. And because they don't continue to work on it, they start to suck because they get stuck in their they get stuck in a routine, they get stuck in their old ways, and they don't make forward progress. Like everything in life, we have to progress if we want to be good. So you're never really good, you're a work in progress. Now, very quickly, I want to jump in here before we get to some really practical tips about how we can improve our communication. But if you find communicating nervous, even if you are a speaker and you still find you're fighting off the nerves a little bit, you can get my completely free Defeat Speech Anxiety training, which will walk you through 7 ways we can reduce anxiety or completely remove it if we're effective at applying the strategies to be able to get on stages and speak more confidently. If you would like to remove or reduce your anxiety when you speak, go to my website. The link will be down in the description and you can watch that free training right now. So then you can understand why public speaking and learning to communicate more effectively is going to benefit you in your life. But you're wondering, what are some simple ways I can improve that communication right now? Well, here's a few that you can do. First of all, if you want to sound more authoritative, if you want to sound more in control of your thoughts and the words coming out of your mouth, you need to learn the art of pausing. Pauses create moments that people lean in for. If you use pauses dynamically, the way you speak, you allow people to not just catch up to what you're saying, they're ready for what you're going to say next. Work on pacing out your pauses. So not just using pauses, but using pacing to be able to make what you say more engaging, more dynamic, more interesting. So learn the art of the pause and learn how to pace your words effectively. Another thing you can do that will make you more dynamic and more interesting to listen to is to learn how to modulate your voice. Modulation makes us sound more interesting. Think about if you hear someone who talks in a monotone voice. We've always heard this. You may have heard it back when you were at school or maybe in lecture halls. You may have heard it when someone stands up to do a work meeting or presentation and they talk in a monotone voice. It doesn't change. They don't inflect. It's just continuous sound that has and you're bored. You're just completely bored. We have to use modulation and inflection to raise our voice and lower our voice to make us sound more interesting. We can use pitch and pace to really change up what we're saying so that people are more interested in the words coming out of your mouth. If people are leaning in because they're interested, then they will continue to stick with you all the way through what you're saying. Another thing we can do to be more engaging, no matter where we're speaking, whether in team meetings, on stages, or in our personal life, is to ask effective questions. Now, to ask effective questions, we need to listen. Now, this can be easy to do when we're having a conversation with somebody because we can literally ask them questions off of what they've just said. So as long as we're listening to what they've said, we can ask them questions. But it can be harder to do when we're trying to speak from stages because you can't listen to an audience that isn't speaking. But audience do give us non-verbal cues. They give us ways that things we can pick up on to notice what they're saying to us. If we get to our meeting or our event early, we can speak to a few people beforehand, asking them the questions we'd like to know. But people can also give us feedback as we're talking. If people are nodding along to a point that we're making, we know that they're interested in that we're effectively communicating to them, and then could ask a relevant question off of what was said. We have to use our eyes, we have to use our perception, we have to be aware of our audience. So understanding non-verbal cues is very important to speaking from stages and in work meetings. We can also use information that we know about the topic. If we know we need to stand up and speak in our work meeting to our colleagues about a certain topic, because that's what we've been asked to speak about, do effective research and look for the relevant questions that people are asking about that particular topic. You can think to yourself, what are the problems? What are the pains? What are the issues that people experience with this topic? Now, these 3 areas are just a few of the ways pausing, modulation, and asking effective questions that we can make ourselves so much more engaging when we speak to people in any environment. And if you practice these for work meetings and speaking on stages and presentations, you'll find that they translate into your personal life. and you can use them to have better conversations or to win high-stakes personal situations that mean that you are more effective as a communicator.